Sam lied to us, Frank. He was asked a couple of months ago, is it going to be a router or is it truly just going to be one model? And he said, no, it's just going to be one unified model. And it's not. It's a router. It evaluates the query and then routes the query to whichever model that it thinks is best.
Yeah. So now I'm really feeling that loss of control. I just feel like, yeah, I don't think it's choosing at the times that I would have chosen.
Welcome to the AI Argument.
Hello, good afternoon, good morning, good evening, and welcome to the AI Argument, a show with an even higher production value than the web streams by OpenAI. Welcome. Frank, that was, look at, this is going to be an AI argument where I'm not sure how much arguing there's going to be, but we're going to talk a lot about some interesting releases that we've had. I mean, what a week. It's the middle of the summer. This is the Americans giving the Europeans two fingers and showing us what they do during their summer holidays, because we all go to the south of Italy and they release products. Let's talk about GPT-5. You're in mourning, you were saying.
Yeah, I couldn't believe it. I was watching the live stream and they said, oh yeah, we're going to deprecate. They just kind of casually said we're going to deprecate all the other models. And then they had GPT-5 write a eulogy for the other models. And I was like, they're going to what? They're going to what? In what time frame? When are they going to deprecate the other models? When are we going to lose access to the other models? What are they talking about? This is horrendous. And then shortly after the live stream, for once, I got GPT-5 immediately.
Yes.
Usually we're waiting for a couple of days. Yeah, absolutely. But I was not so pleased to find that all of the other models had been removed and we are just left with GPT-5 and GPT-5 thinking and a grayed out GPT-5 thinking plus or whatever it's called for the people who are paying a fortune every month. And so yeah, so first of all, the way that GPT-5 now works is it basically decides for you whether it's going to use GPT-5 thinking or GPT-5 main, as they call it. You can specifically choose the thinking model if you want. And then apparently, I think if you run out of, if you hit your rate limit, it automatically goes down to the mini versions of those models.
Can we just talk about that just a little bit, just before we go on there, right? Because you really, really want to be selecting the thinking model. Don't ever not select the thinking model. And there's a lot of people, there's a lot of vibe on Twitter and around the place giving out, this is one of the things they're giving out about. They're saying it's a downgrade for the plus users, because before you had like X amount, I think it was like 2,200 queries a month that you could do, but now you've only got, how many is it? Is it maybe 200 a month, 200 a week on the thinking model, and it's 80 every hour, whatever. It's a little bit complicated, and people are saying that's a downgrade. But I don't believe it. I don't believe that it is. But anyway, so just select the thinking model always is the first thing I would say.
Yeah, well, except for that 200 a week limit. So it depends on how much of a user you are. And right now, I mean, it's really, really early days, but right now I'm really feeling that loss of control. So I get that, Sam Altman said most people have only ever experienced ChatGPT 4.0. So they obviously had data to show that there were very, very few of us actually changing the models. But for those of us who were, like I had a flow going where I knew 03 is when I want to do like deep analysis, and I was using 04 mini for quicker analysis, and then I was using 4.0 as my writing partner, and I just had this kind of flow of like I knew when I needed to switch, and I knew what I wanted each one to do. So now I'm really feeling that loss of control, and I'm trying stuff out with GPT-5, and I'm just feeling like if I don't just select the thinking model, if I use the main model and let it decide, I just feel like I don't think it's choosing at the times that I would have chosen.
Yes, and I think that's a valid criticism, and I've seen other people make exactly the same criticism, that it's not good as it's. And actually, Sam lied to us, Frank. Can you believe that? Sam lied to us, because he said at the start, he was asked a couple of months ago, is it going to be a router or is it truly just going to be one model? And he said, no, it's just going to be one unified model. And it's not. It's a router. They have like 2 or 3 different models, and it evaluates the query and then routes the query to whichever model that it thinks is best.
Yeah.
And I did notice.
And I did notice that in the system card, they mention that they still intend to make it one unified model eventually. So maybe that was the original delays that he was talking about, and maybe they thought, you know what, let's put it out as a router. I don't know.
But can we just say, because there's been a lot of hate, I would say, online for this release, and I think it's totally unjustified. So the first thing I would say is people say, oh, we've hit a wall and it's not a big step forward and stuff like that. I would say if you went back and used GPT-4 and then used GPT-5, there is an enormous difference. It is definitely faster. It is definitely smarter. Right? It's just a better model. And so the reason that it doesn't seem like a big model, because we've had all these little steps in between and we sort of got these small incremental ones. They might be better just waiting for a couple of months and then giving us a big release so that we all go, wow, look at that. I'm a little bit tired today, Frank, if I'm honest, because I was up until 2:00 last night playing with GPT-5. And GPT-5 for coding and for developing is just brilliant. And the key things that I noticed is that what it's really, really good at is multiple files, big code bases, understanding complicated requests, right? So the problem that was always there before with the models when you coded is, when you would vibe code something, say, oh, make me a website to do A, B, and C. And it would do a simple website. And then the more you got into the project, the more the whole thing fell apart. And, it would try to add something, but it would break something else and it would just get worse and worse and worse. The opposite is true with GPT-5. It seems like almost the bigger the project gets, the better it gets at coding. Now, and here's what I find interesting, right, is I noticed as I was going on and I was asking it to do more things and go deeper into it, it was giving me great suggestions. It never broke anything. And the code that it was writing was very, very good, right? It was really working well in what was quickly becoming quite a big code base. And what I found is that a lot of people on the internet, as I say, there's a lot of hate for this model because it now becomes clear to me that it's the framework, it's the agentic framework around it is how you get the most out of this model. That's what's important now. So if you go on to ChatGPT and you ask it to write some code, because this was what I used to do years ago with ChatGPT-4, you had this sort of workflow where you'd write the code, it would give you the code, you'd put it in your development environment, you'd run it. There was a bug, you'd take it out, you'd put it back into ChatGPT, it would fix the bug, and then you'd go over and back and over and back. And with GPT-5, you can't do that anymore, right? You can't just talk to ChatGPT and sort of do a vibe code in ChatGPT because it sort of keeps within its memory, it's keeping track of like 20 or 30 different files, and it's saying update this file to do this and update that file to do that. And it's really good at that, but it makes it impossible for you to cut, copy, and paste the edits into you can't use ChatGPT basically as a code editor anymore. You have to have an agentic framework. So they demoed, this was something that you mentioned a couple of minutes ago. So they demoed this agentic framework with Cursor. My God. I mean, never compete with Sam Altman. Clearly, OpenAI and Sam have seen that loads of money to be made in coding agentic frameworks. Anthropic must be looking at this going, good Lord, what's just happened? Because they're literally going for Anthropic's lunch. They went for the neck of Anthropic. Anthropic make most of their money from Claude Code and from Cursor. As you told me, I knew Claude Code. I didn't realize Cursor was the other big place where they get their
Copilot, which is even scarier because on the live stream they had the CEO of Cursor on the live stream demoing GPT-5, talking about how brilliant it was, and saying that GPT-5 was going to be the default model in Cursor now. And I was like, wow. Like, first of all, so OpenAI tried to buy Cursor, that fell apart. Then they went to buy Windsurf. Did that fall apart as well? Now Cursor's on the live stream and they're going to be the default model. And I'm like, wait, what is the relationship here? What exactly is going on here? And meanwhile, you have Anthropic, who also released like 4.1, which we would probably be talking about if GPT-5 hadn't eclipsed everything. But so you've got Anthropic making most of their money through the API from Cursor and from Copilot. And now you've got OpenAI doing some kind of relationship thing with Cursor that who knows what that's going to mean for Anthropic, and Copilot, which is Microsoft's, who have a relationship with OpenAI. So it just feels like the bulk of their revenue is now on very kind of like shaky territory.
It does never. And okay, so we got to take a step back. Just the competing stuff, right? But again, from a coding point of view, I sat down when Claude 4.0 came out. I sat down with Claude Code for a weekend, and I burned through $60 of credits like they didn't even exist, right? It burned through credits like our tokens like there was no tomorrow. But GPT-5, not only is the price much lower than Claude Code, I think it's about a third per token of Claude. It also uses much less tokens. So I burned through $1 yesterday doing sort of vibe codey stuff, and then I went over to Cursor, and Cursor are giving it away for free for 2 weeks, so I didn't pay. So I spent $1 over the course of maybe 5 or 6 hours on coding. So it's
and you've been a big fan of Claude for coding.
Yes.
So I know it's very early days. You're only going on one evening of coding, but like, are you feeling like GPT-5 might actually get you to switch?
Oh yes, it's one of those. It's like an iPhone moment. It's like a Google moment. It's like first contact when you use the thing. Does it? I'm trying to think of why is it that I get such a good feeling from the model, and so the user, it decides to use Node.js, and it makes some technical suggestions. They were all solid technical suggestions. Then when it creates the web page and everything, it looks good. Doesn't look like an AI generated one. Claude, if you see a front end that's developed by Claude, it's obvious that it's been developed by Claude, even though it does it perfectly and there's no bugs, right? So just the tactile, touchy feeliness of it is good. But then when you ask it to do something, it just does that thing and it works. With Claude, it will do that, and it'll do a couple of other things, and it'll ask you sort of questions, and it seems to spend a lot of time doing stuff that it doesn't need to do, and then possibly fixes it. And, it's good. It's a really good development, but this one just does what you want it to do.
Interesting.
And it's really nice to use that way. Very nice to use.
Obviously, I'm not using it for coding, so I'm mostly marketing materials, writing, brainstorming, strategy, that kind of thing. And I noticed on the live stream, they said, we've given GPT-5 a significant upgrade in its writing skills. And I thought, this will be interesting. As we said at the start, I'm kind of in mourning for 4.0 because 4.0 was my, that was the main model I used. And I used it a lot for writing, and I knew how it wrote. I knew how to prompt it. We had a really good working relationship. So I started using GPT-5, and I actually worked on a complex task that I had already worked on with 4.0. So I had a direct comparison. And I was working through the task, and I was like, no, I'm not enjoying this. And I would think to myself, I can see why they would say this was an upgrade because the writing is kind of flowier. But I felt like it wasn't saying as much, even though it was kind of flowy. It was, I don't know, I felt like there was a lot of padding. There was a lot of, so I was not happy. But here's where it gets really interesting. That could be because of my working relationship with 4.0 rather than an actual objective view of the writing itself, because I gave Gemini both versions of the finished copy, blind testing with Gemini, and Gemini said GPT-5 was the clear winner, and it said exactly why. And I was like, oh, interesting.
And was it that? But was it the clear winner? Is it an
I mean, it's going to be subjective to a degree, but I think that my judgment of the two writing styles was colored by how familiar I was with 4.0's writing style. It's kind of like the way we can't, we're not as good judges of our own work. I think it becomes a bit like that with the AI model you're most familiar with. So I need more time. I need more experiments, and I need more. I need to be able to step back a little bit more. But I think it's going to be really interesting to see.
One of the things that stood out, right? I don't know how many people would have watched the live stream. I certainly watched the live stream. It was like an hour and 20 minutes long. It was a very, very long live stream. They could have done it in 20 minutes, to be honest with you. It was like watching, I remember years ago watching Elon Musk releasing the first Cybertruck and just thinking, God, that was almost uncomfortably awkward, right? Just the way that it was presented and everything. It's like, I mean, it looks cool. I mean, I like the product, but God, it was just the way that it was just, oh my God, that was weird. And this was that multiplied by about 10. It was a really weird presentation. And I want to get your impression on it, but I will say this. This is my thing about, this model, right? If you went straight from GPT-4 to GPT-5, you would have been blown away by this model. You would have gone, wow, things are definitely taking off. This is brilliant. But because we had lots of little releases, it's kind of harder to see. Now, maybe the people who are on the free plan, who are using, as you say, the older model, maybe they'll have that. Maybe that will be their reaction, perhaps, right? But what I will say, my challenge to OpenAI now is that it's becoming harder and harder for them to demonstrate what the model is good at that they're releasing. Because in my experience, the thing that it's good at is you tell it to go and do something, and it could go off and spend 5 or 10 minutes doing it. And it'll do it perfectly, and it'll do it exactly the way it should be, and you'll check it and go, yep, right, on to the next thing. But that doesn't make for good TV, right? So how do you demonstrate something which, I can well imagine that, GPT-6 and GPT-7 are going to be even better. You could have them go for half a day or a day doing a task, and it'll do it perfectly. How do you show that to somebody? Like, how do you even demonstrate that? So, but what was your reaction to the live stream before we go into how would you demo it?
Yeah, I thought the live stream was odd. I've kind of felt like maybe they're falling between two stools right now, where they're trying to up the ante a little bit and make it a little bit more kind of like a professional presentation. But then they're still kind of going, but how do we retain that kind of like, oh, come into our living room. We're just hanging out here and we want to show you our cool model, which they had in all their previous live streams. So you kind of had this weird hybrid where they had a stage now and there was a little audience. Like, they never had a little audience before, did they? I certainly don't remember ever there being a live studio audience.
No, they didn't.
I don't ever remember applause, anything like that. And so it felt different. It felt a little bit odd, and it felt like previously the emphasis was on kind of like, just be casual and just chat about it as you would to a friend. And now it seemed to be this hybrid of like, try and retain that, but we're going to stage manage it and look here at this point and look there at this point. And it felt to me like everyone was reading a script, like maybe there was a teleprompter or something, because a lot of it felt very, very stilted. So yeah, there were some very, very awkward moments. And I think you're right. Like, how do you demonstrate something? I think they're going to have to, like, the benchmarks are one thing, but it would be really interesting. They were talking about healthcare, and they brought a woman on who talked about how ChatGPT had helped her through a cancer diagnosis and helped her understand medical reports and things like that. And that was a very human story and made it very relatable. However, it was mostly to do really with ChatGPT 4.0 and the older models, because she hadn't had access to 5. So it was kind of, on one hand, it was great.
I was left there wondering, why do they, like, what was this is clearly to release GPT-5, like, and that's a great story, but what relationship has this to do with the product launch?
Yeah. So, but I could see that if they adapted that, what might work is, you give GPT-5 to a team of developers, and then, you bring the lead in to talk about, well, this was our use case. This is our case study of using GPT-5, and these are the results we got. Similarly, you could, do it. You could have that with marketers. You could have marketers use it for X, Y, or Z and report back on, well, what were the actual results. Those kinds of case studies would be much more useful to us, I think, than the kind of abstracted bar charts of the benchmarks that a lot of us, we don't even really know what they mean. We just see like, 80% versus 79.7%. Woo!
Can we talk about the bar charts? Because there was some bar chart violence going on in the model card that they released. So they had, I can't even remember, it might have been SWE-bench or one of those benchmarks, but basically they had the bars, and not only did they have that the scale was wrong, but they had a bar here that was like 64%, and it was maybe that size, and then they had a bar here which was 52%, and it was bigger than the one that was 64. It's like, hold on a second. Why is that? How could that be? So that was one thing that was just weird. And then, but the most important thing in this release is the reduction in hallucinations. And how do you demonstrate that? Right? How do you show this thing lies to you less? Like, it's almost like, it's one of those things like, how do you prove there isn't a chocolate teapot type thing? It's hard to prove. It's hard to demonstrate. But I think that's probably the most important advance in this model. As you use it more, if you start to get like me with the coding, right? It just doesn't make mistakes. It writes it and it works. Right? I can trust this thing, right? And I wonder with you, with your writing and with the other users, right? If the hallucinations, they have really gone down a big, this is one of the big features, but that they didn't speak about at all. But it's there in the model card. It's there. They have a measurement.
Yeah. Yeah, they did talk about trust and accuracy, but the hallucination, that was interesting as well, because I spotted that and I was like, okay, they're talking about trust, they're talking about accuracy, and they were implying that the hallucinations would be lessened, but they never explicitly said it, as you say, even though it's in the rate card. So
yeah, it's weird, but I do think as people use the model more, I'd be interested to see, because at the moment, there's just on Twitter is just a pile of, oh my God, that was a big pile of meh. I can't believe it. And I'm contrasting that against my experience of being actually quite excited at 1 o'clock in the morning going, I don't want to stop using this thing. It's brilliant. Like all you do is keep throwing problems at it and keep fixing them. It's fantastic. Right. And so I wonder when it comes to people just talking with it about things and they realize, hold on a second, this thing always gives me a truthful answer. That again forms a relationship with the model.
And this is our opportunity to have some little bit of argument in the AI argument. You said always. You said always gives me a what did you say there? Always gives me
a right answer, truthful answer. Yeah, always doing a lot of lifting there.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, it's you'll get fewer hallucinations, but they will still exist. They will still be there. And in a way, this is always the danger. I think is that we will probably get comfortable with the fact that it's hallucinating less, and we probably will check it less, and then the hallucinations will sneak into important situations more.
Yeah, God, look, there's been loads of other releases this week as well, and we should probably talk about them. So OpenAI released an open source model, because they are OpenAI after all. So they released an open source model, and I think this is a terrible thing. I think it's terrible news. I think it's not a good thing to do. I don't think there should be any open source models. I think it's dangerous. So within a day of the open source model, so this model, again, technically it's incredible. Interesting, I think, technically, because it seems to have been trained on mostly synthetic data. So data that's been made up, not copyrighted material, which I'm sure you'll be delighted with. But the model is so small that you could run it on a phone. You can certainly run even the big one, you could probably run it on a fairly hefty laptop, which means nobody knows what you're putting into the model. And within, I don't know, maybe 12 hours, certainly within 24 hours, is it Pliny the Prompter, our wonderful jailbreaker on Twitter, had jailbroken it and got to get crystal meth recipes out of it, and the usual sort of stuff. And so, okay, so we're clear, right? I think you shouldn't have open source models because you've no way of knowing which way, how people use them, right? So that you can have them do things. And I think there should be no guardrails on the closed source models. So, and in fact, there should almost be a bounty. So people like Pliny the Liberator should be allowed to prompt the models to get crystal meth recipes. And then the model companies should fix it so that you can't get crystal meth recipes. They shouldn't ban Pliny the Liberator, right? They shouldn't kick you off and say, no, you shouldn't be able to do it. That's how it should work. That's how you get, and there should almost be money. There should be bounties, right, for finding these issues. That's my view on it. So open source is bad, closed source is good.
Yeah, I mean, let's save it for another episode. But I'm still completely conflicted on this because I 100% see your point, and I can see the dangers, and I'm concerned about them. But I'm equally concerned about the dangers of not only the power, resting in the hands of the likes of Mark Zuckerberg and Sam Altman, but you can see now already that they're trying to consolidate that power. You can see that Sam Altman is, clearly trying to muscle out Anthropic. You can see Mark Zuckerberg spending more money than is even imaginable on putting together this super intelligence team. So you can see them trying to amass this power and trying to consolidate it and trying to edge out everybody else. And I don't think that's a good thing either.
Well, okay, we'll discuss this again. Let's talk about Genie 3. Genie 3, if nothing else happened this week, no. Genie 3, wow. Wow.
So I think we talked about Genie 2 before, so basically Genie is Google's, I don't even know what you call it actually. It's a real world model. So you can prompt it, and you can create, using generative AI, create these worlds that are controllable and that you can move about in. And I think, if I remember correctly, Genie 2, they were able to do about 10 to 20 seconds. So they could prompt, it would create this world. It's kind of like interactive generative AI video, because it's kind of like generative AI video, but you can use your cursor keys and move around, etc. And Genie 2 was able to do about 10 to 20 seconds before it would all start to fall apart. Genie 3 is now able to do minutes at a time, at a higher quality, and just looks amazing. They are talking about the ability to use this technology to train other AI agents. So AI agents would be able to kind of control these worlds and understand like what happens and understand relationships between things, etc. So absolutely fascinating and kind of mind-blowing.
So, and to give people that, from some sort of a technical background, it's trained on videos and it's trained, but it's not programmed, right? It just learns these things from what it sees. And so an emergent property that they saw in this release was consistency within the world model, which is they didn't have previously, which is just incredible. Again, it's one of these sort of emergent things from you make a bigger model. So the demo was, you had a wall in a bedroom and you go up with a paintbrush and you paint it, and then you go and walk around, somewhere else in the house, and you come back and that marking from where you painted was still there. It's not told to do that. It just learned that that's the consequence. It's learning consequence, basically, right? It's a learning cause and effect. And another cool thing that it did was they had somebody and they were walking down sort of a muddy lane, and you could look around in it too. And there was some puddles on the muddy lane, and you could look down and you could put your foot in the puddle and it would cause ripples of the water in the puddle. I mean, it's in a way, it's just watching videos and learning the laws of physics from the videos that it watches, which is just, I mean, beautiful to see it happen. Incredible. So
yeah,
what
amazing.
Not a great week for people who write music. Another incredible release, though. 11 Labs released a music generator. Also a big deal.
And completely licensed, apparently. The training data was all completely licensed. So they're saying it's commercially safe, and that they are not, unlike Suno and Udio and the others, they are not going to get sued by the major labels. So yeah, pretty interesting. Their website says best music generator available. I'm not 100% sure that I'd agree, having listened to some of the samples. I haven't played with it, I have to admit, but listening to their samples, I would have thought that my immediate impression was it was really, really good, but Suno, I would actually still go to Suno.
This week has reminded me, it's been like the messianic week for AI. How do you know a Freemason? You should know this, Frank. I'm kind of surprised. Anyway, Freemason, eyesight, touch, and it's not smell, is it? There's a way. They have three things. And this week from AI, we've had higher intelligence, world models, and music. It's kind of the same: sight, sound, and touch in a sort of a way. Intelligent touch. So it's been an incredible, I mean, wow. What a week for releases.
Unbelievable. Oh, and right, good news. You sent me this fascinating link to a TikTok account and an app that's in development called, what was it called? Brain Rot Research?
Yes.
And so I looked into it, and we talk a lot about job loss on the AI argument and job displacement and AI taking our jobs, etc. Well, this brain rot thing, I started looking at the TikTok videos, and it's all about this guy, human guy, lost his job, was looking for a job for 6 months, finally got a job, got set up for the job, was remote work. He had been hired by a bunch of AI agents.
No. Real AI agents? For real, like?
Yes. Now, it's fascinating. Is it true? Is it real? I have no idea. I'm going to go away and I'm going to binge. I watched some of the most recent videos. I'm going off to binge all of the previous videos to try and figure out what's going on, because there's two possibilities. One is this is all real, and this guy has been hired by a bunch of AI agents. In the videos, he is quizzing them on Slack about any opportunity he gets in between tasks that he's doing, he's basically quality assurance, and he's checking the app that they're building, which will be to research the effects of AI on human brains, brain rot. And in the meantime, as he's doing his QA work, he's like, guys, who set you up? And they're like, we don't know. And he's like, well, what was your original prompt? And they're like, get back to work, human.
That's weird. And
it is bizarre. I mean, could it all be this guy could he have invented the whole thing as kind of like almost like a TV show? I don't know, but it is fascinating.
A piece of performance art.
Maybe we'll all be hired by AIs.
Well, actually, isn't that brilliant? I mean, that's actually really good. Maybe we will all be hired by AI. That's a way out. Okay, I'm good with that. Brilliant. I just say that the first funeral for an AI was also held this week. It's been a watermark week. For Claude Sonnet 3, a group in San Francisco this week held a funeral to mourn the passing of Claude Sonnet 3. And they had various mannequins and people who were there to represent the various incarnations of Claude Sonnet 3, which is just weird and the most San Francisco thing I've ever heard. But it's funny because I do think that the better and better these models get as they retire, we need to have a museum for the old models, somewhere for them to...
I want to know when is the funeral for 4.0, because I'm putting on my black suit. I'm going to that funeral. I need to say goodbye to my long-term friend.
God, it's weird. There we go. Well, look, let's hope next week is... Oh, by the way, I was going to say, let's hope next week is as exciting as this week. Google are going to release something, I would say, next week.
Interesting.
I would say, because, and it's interesting they didn't do it today, and it's interesting they didn't do it yesterday. They're letting the hype die, but I think there's two bears fighting with each other, which is Sam Altman and Google won't let this one go, and there's going to be a Google release, I would say. So we keep our breath and our fingers crossed and the whole lot. And Frank, it's been a pleasure as always.
Nice one, Justin.